and then everybody will have the little pop-up saying,
Mhm.
hey,
Yep.
make sure this is being recorded. Don't worry about it. Okay, and I think we can dive right in. Well, thank all of you for coming on and discussing the last quarter of 2022. You know, we're the first full week done of 2023, so it gives us a chance to kind of think back about the last couple of months. And before we dive in, I want to introduce everybody. I think everybody's very familiar with the gang that we've accomplished today. But let's start actually with Scott. Scott, I've been trying to get you on here since the very beginning of this, and our scheduling just never came about. So
yeah, you know, I'm a real busy guy, but this is my first time on this panel. Thanks for the invite. I'm Scott from the Prog Corner, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for having me. And yeah, we're just going to talk about prog rock for a little bit. What could be better? I can't think of anything.
That's it. I can't think of a better way to spend an afternoon.
Exactly.
Yeah. So on my screen, let's go clockwise to Nathan.
All right. So I'm Nathan. I have a YouTube channel called Nathan on Shuffle that covers all types of prog content as well. I do some shows with my wife where we react to prog songs that she's unfamiliar with and do all kinds of prog news and reviews and all that kind of stuff. So just looking forward to the video today and glad to be here.
Next up would be Brent.
Hey, everybody, I'm Brent from the Similitude of Prague. It's finally nice to meet you, Scott, on a video.
Hey.
And I look forward to this more than anything probably in the world right now. So let's keep it up and talk some.
Amazing. That sounds great. And leading up the bunch, we have Ian.
I'll finish things off then. Hello, everybody. My name's Ian. I run a little channel called Rhyme Signatures on the old YouTube space. Mostly I just waffle for far too long about things that I like. I've been doing it for about 12 months now. Loving every single time I get a chance to do this and couldn't be happier to be here. Looking forward to talking about last quarter.
Great, yeah. And y'all know me. I don't think I need too much of an introduction because this is my channel. So if you don't know who I am and you're here, well, look at any of the videos that are on this channel. So let's dive right into it. And I think we'll start with our favorite releases from October to December of 2022. And Scott, since you're the new person, why don't we start off with you? What was your favorite release of this the last 3 months?
You know, it was actually a late arrival for me. This album did not make my list in print because I've got a ridiculously early deadline at the Fire Note. But when I shot my video, I stuck it in as a tie at number 25, and it's Verbal Delirium's Conundrum. This album has got me all wrapped up in its spell. It's just amazing. The fourth album from this Greek band led by the great singer, songwriter Jargon. Yeah, I still can't stop listening to it. You know, I've got the new Riverside to listen to and E Molecule to listen to. And, you know, that Flower Kings live album, I haven't listened to any of it. I just can't stop listening to this Verbal Delirium record. It's that good. I really love it. That's been,
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat in that I'm still kind of processing and digesting music from this year to dive into the newer stuff that we have for well, I should say last year rather than this year. Yeah, and I know Verbal Delirium is one that I still haven't checked out yet, but it is on my list of things from 2022 to revisit before ushering forth into 2023.
I think you'll like it. I really do. It's really dramatic, and you know, it tells a good story, even though it's not a concept album, and it just really utilizes a lot of different elements from ELO and Meatloaf all the way through to Neil Morris Band and Transatlantic and everything in between. It's really cool.
Amazing, I must admit, I did check this one out based off how hype Scott was for it. I just had to check it out. I was like, okay, there's no way I can like avoid hearing this one because it just sounds absolutely amazing. And I have given it a listen. And I think if I was to do sort of almost like a retrospective, like sort of rewind my top 15, it would probably slot somewhere nicely in there.
Nice.
Not quite sure like how high up yet because I need to spend a bit more time with it, but it is genuinely just peachy keen, really good record. Love it.
Amazing. Nathan and Brent, have you had to listen to it?
I'm aware of it and I've heard a little bit of it, not enough to get a a good feel, but
Mhm.
sounds like maybe I should.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
worth your
listened-
time, I think.
Yeah, I listened to it basically based on your recommendation, Scott, as well. And you know, when I was reaching out a little bit for what to cover on my year-end
Yeah.
album review special, and so I slotted that one in at the last minute, and it's brilliant. It's really great stuff.
Fantastic.
Sounds like you chose a really good record there, Scott.
Yeah, I got lucky. Yeah, that one just snuck into my inbox, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I was really into Forsaken Innocence by Drifting Sun last year. His vocal performance on that just blew me away. So I was kind of ready for this to be really good. I wasn't ready for it to be this good. Really,
Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, let's continue the clockwise positioning and go to Nathan. Nathan, what was your favorite record from October to December?
All right, so mine a little bit not quite prog traditionally maybe, but prog related. I think a lot of people who love prog music would like it. It's Dirt Poor Robins and Queen of the Night is my favorite release. I really love it. For fans of like the Deer Hunter, there's some shared DNA there, some really throwback like vaudevillian type stuff on it. Like it's basically a soundtrack to a big silent film that they created, and so there's a lot of that feel of this like throwback era film music stuff, but it's really cool songs, really great melodies. They just have great vocals and just a really cool blend of like some cinematic type stuff, but then some more poppy, like almost bouncy vaudevillian, like fun tracks as well. So it's just a cool mixture, and one that I've been loving more and more as I dive in deeper. So really would recommend that one.
Yeah, I love that record. The track, is it Penny Graves? The second track?
Penelope Graves. Yeah.
Penelope Graves. That's right. It's practically a soundtrack to a Dungeons and Dragons character that I play.
Amazing.
And her name is Penelope, and it's shortened to Penny. So it was like, this is made for her. This is incredible. So yeah.
I
great.
springboarded off this one from your recommendation as well, Nathan. I was just like randomly browsing around, and then I saw like it was in my recommended in my like Spotify, and then I saw that you were talking about it as well, and I just had to click play. I thought, okay, you just mentioned the Deer Hunter, and you've just got my attention immediately. Like that's just how that's like hook, line, and sinker for me. Just straight away reel me in. Loved it, 100%, absolutely chuffing loved it. It's so good. It's just so dynamic and creative sounding. It's just got such a pomp and bombast to it. Oh, loved it. 100%, absolutely loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I love when this new like more modern sound creeps into prog, or I guess the other way around. I guess when prog creeps into more modern sounds, because like as much as I love like the retro prog sound and like my heart will always be there, it warms my heart more when I'm hearing modern groups adopt progressive rock, because it shines a brighter star, I think, for the music going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah, this is one I did not care for at first, and then I started reading, the press kit and getting a little bit of an idea where they were coming from. And you know how we hear music sometimes in colors and in visuals, and as soon as they started talking about a silent film and I started seeing the music in black and white, it started making sense to me. It's awesome. It's really good. It's really good.
That's cool. Great. That's great. Yeah. Great. Brent, let's head on over to you. What was your favorite release from these past months?
My favorite release was Threshold's Dividing Lines this year. I'm going back to early thrash and speed metal, and they've kind of delved into that a little bit, and it was really impressive. And yeah, I can't say anything too much more other than that. This and Queensryche's new release, I like this one a little bit better, but I think progressive metal is in good hands this year. Or last year, I guess now.
Yeah.
And hopefully this year too.
Yeah, I really loved their latest album, and I think they took what they learned from their last record and kind of expanded on it. It's a little darker, it's a little bit more dynamic, and it's not quite as long, which
No, it's nice. It's a much more digestible.
I did like that last Threshold album a lot. So
Yeah.
this one, I kind of came in with high expectations, and it did not disappoint. You know, I'm not a huge prog metal guy, but this one rang my bell. I liked it a lot. Yeah, it's a good call on that one, Brett.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Was.
Well, I think that would be a good segue over to you, Ian.
Oh, me. Hello, it's me. I am Ian. I am he.
Yes.
Yeah, so coming as very little surprise to anybody who's like watching what I'm into and knows my sort of background in terms of like what I like out of prog. My favorite release from the last quarter was absolutely 100% so easily Parius's The Signal Heard Throughout Space. Just hands down one of the most just absorbing, interesting, fascinating, and just utterly Moorish records I've listened to in just so long. It came in at like number 2 on my overall list of the year, and every single element of this record just works so well for me. There's just the guitar tone is amazing, the vocals are fantastic. There's so many catchy and memorable hooks, riffs, vocal passages throughout, which just give me chills thinking about them. Like the last song, Arecibo, is like up there for me with like White Walls from Between the Buried and Me as one of the best album closers I've ever heard. And Colors is literally my favorite record ever, like ever across all genres.
Wow.
So for me to be able to make any comparison to that record at all for something that came out last year for me is just like, that's pretty high praise. So yeah, prog metal guy, prog metal album, loved it 1000%. Probably going to go and listen to it again tonight, because now that I've started talking about it again, I keep thinking about all the bits that I loved so much, and just chef kiss.
Yeah,
hats off to Parius.
I honestly think this might be my go-to record to introduce people to prog metal at this point, because I've mentioned this before, like I love that record, but what holds it back for me is how heavily they lean on all their influences. Like I can't listen to it without thinking, oh, this is a Haken passage.
Yeah,
Oh, this is a Between the Buried and Me package. Oh, this is a Dream Theater passage. Oh, this is Native Construct, right? And so like,
it definitely has that sort of holding it back, but I do feel that whatever comes next from them, if they do learn from that sort of become more of themselves, then it's going to be possibly one of the best bands out there in the prog metal sphere at the moment. I mean, it's a little bit frustrating that they weren't more individual, but I do feel that it's kind of like if you take you got like a Chinese banquet or whatever, and you take a little bit of everything from all over the place and you put it on your plate. Sure, it's a bit of everything, but it still ends up being a very satisfying meal at the end of the day. And I feel that's the same with this record.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that illusion. And that's why I want to give this record to somebody who's never heard Haken or Between the Buried and Me or Dream Theater or anything like that. Like somebody who's new to the progressive metal genre, so they don't have those preconceived notions. Be like, hey, that's us. Hey, that's what we're doing. Right?
Definitely.
I would love.
Well, it's funny because that kind of a record to me was always that Native Construct album.
Oh, that is such a great record as well.
When I heard Michael discussing this record on their channel and use that connection, I had to hear it immediately. I'm like, because that Native Construct record was just
Quiet World is just phenomenal. I'm so upset that I don't think we're ever going to get another one from them. I'm like, no, I want more.
No. At the time we needed them most, they disappeared.
So upsetting.
But yeah, it's still like one of my top favorite progressive metal albums of this year. Nathan and Brent, have you given this one a spin?
Yeah, I've heard it. I really love it too. It was on my top 40 albums of the year list. It was actually one of my like surprises, because it has a little bit of that heavy growling at times, which I've been struggling with, but actually have liked a lot more this past year.
I like Scott's head shake there, like nope.
A little bit goes a long way.
Yeah. I will admit though, I'm so proud of both you and Brent on like embracing it a little bit more, especially with like Charlie Griffith's record, like starting to ease your way into it without it being a complete jagged pill getting stuck in the throat.
Right? Down quite slow.
Yeah, as long as it's used sparingly.
Exactly.
I can handle it.
So I recommend staying away from the new Lorna Shore record then.
Oh yes.
It's very good
for me,
but it's
that.
It's spicy. Yeah. Brent, have you had a chance to listen to this one yet?
No, again, I haven't.
Yeah, I think it might be a really good one for you because I know how much you like Haken and them. And they do lean quite a bit on their influences on that. So
Oh, good. I'll
yeah,
check that
and
one
if
out.
and I know because have you listened to much Between the Buried and Me? I feel like they're one that you have like dabbled with a little bit, but
A
usually
little
stayed away
bit. I'm
from.
not real familiar with this stuff other than the bigger tracks, but I don't mind what I've heard of theirs. They're a band I've thought, I should
Yeah.
hold a
So
little
this might
Kevin and actually look into.
this might be a really good one for you to dip your toes
Oh,
into,
definitely. Yeah.
without
Yeah.
having their back catalog behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, that can
Um,
be a little intimidating with a lot of these
Yeah.
bands. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean they have 11 albums out?
Oh
Imagine
boy,
trying to be a
yeah,
Hawkwind fan. Jesus.
Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
know.
like, what?
So mine, and I had a couple here, but mine is actually much like Nathan's, kind of prog adjacent, rather than straight up prog, and that is actually the new Wise Blood record, In the Darkness Hearts Aglow. I could not stop listening to this one. This one made like I think my top 10, almost into my top 5. And it is much more of like a singer-songwriter pop, like art rock rather than prog. But I think she fits just as well into the prog sphere as like a Kate Bush would. And, like a lot of her tracks go into the 6-minute mark. And I love her use of crescendos and arpeggios, and the overall concept of the album is extremely beautiful, like finding joy and love in dark times. I got blown away, and it was my introduction to her record and her music, and then I went back into her back catalog and just like nom nom nom, like all of her past records. There's such a zeal. So yeah, and I recently picked it up on vinyl just before Christmas, and then it came in at the beginning of this week, so I've been spinning that quite a bit. So even though it's not necessarily prog, that was my favorite of these past couple of months, even though we had a lot of really good records come out this past couple of months. So
Yeah, that one is absolutely unspeakably gorgeous. Like, again, I had never heard of Wise Blood before you guys mentioned anything about her. Funny story, actually. I was in my local record store in my city the other day. When was it? Saturday. Yeah, yesterday. Just browsing, checking out, seeing if there's anything worth buying. Plot twist, didn't buy anything because I'm cheap. But halfway through, whilst I was vibing in there, there's just Children of the Empire comes on. I'm like,
oh,
hello, I know this song. I've listened to this a lot recently. So I basically just hung around, just like I was about to leave as well, but then I was like, no, I'm just going to stay here and wait until the song's finished because I really like this, and just sort of bopping in the aisles, So
yeah,
no, it's fantastic. I absolutely love this record. I bought it for my mum for Christmas. She enjoyed the heck out of it as well. It was it just seems to be like a really good cross-generational, cross-genre classic. I absolutely love it. Cannot recommend it enough. Possibly might get a review of it out in the next week or so, depending on scheduling and whatnot. Might do, don't know. We'll see. But love it. Yeah, great record.
Your record store story reminds me of, when you're driving home and you get to your destination, but there's still a good song on. So like, I'm just gonna chill in the car for a couple more minutes until this song ends.
Mad with that. Aren't you coming in? I'm like, no, I got another 5 minutes of this.
Yeah, it's fine. We can wait.
Yeah, it can be dangerous with prog epics. Like,
I imagine
20
the
minutes
break
left.
starts coming on. It's like, well, I can't leave now.
I can't leave now. Come on. Oh boy. Yeah, so I know a few of you have some opinions about Wise Blood. Looking at you, Scott.
Ooh.
I just don't get it, man. I listen to it and I want to like it so bad because people whose opinions I really, really respect love this record. So I'm giving it my full attention, right? And I'm hearing these really soothing, familiar 70s sonics coming my way and this singer-songwriter type of approach, and I love Kate Bush, so I'm ready to love this record. I'm still kind of waiting for it to hit me.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, that's just it with music sometimes. You just don't know what
I know, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up because I know there's something there. I know it's my loss. So.
Right. Well, I was speaking with Ian just before we got into recording. In preparation for Riverside's new album, I've been going back into their past discography, and when they released "Love, Fear, and the Time Machine," I did not like it at all.
You were
I'm like,
brutal on that.
Yeah, I was just
I
like,
love that album.
where's that punch? Where's that teeth? Where's that like chonky? And it wasn't there. But now that I've gone back and I've been listening to it, I've been loving it. I'm like, I don't know where my head was when I was listening to that record the first time around. I've been loving this record.
I adore that Riverside album so much, and the new one I have listened to a couple times.
Yeah, I've been diving deep into their new record, and I can't wait to talk about it in a couple weeks.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
It's pretty
very
good.
excited
It's pretty good.
for it.
Yeah. No spoilers yet, but it's pretty good.
Nope.
It's not bad.
So let's move on from our favorites to our disappointments, those records that maybe not necessarily were the worst, but the ones that disappointed us the most. And let's skip ahead to one. Let's go to Nathan. I think that would be a really good way to go around for this round. So yeah, Nathan, what was your most disappointing album of the last 3 months?
This is always a challenge because most of what I heard I at least like, and so these aren't really bad albums, they're just ones that didn't connect with me as deeply, I suppose. A couple of like neo-prog style albums, just maybe I wasn't into that style this year or something, but the Galahad album, The Last Great Adventure, was fine, but it wasn't really my favorite of theirs. I liked their previous couple albums a little bit more. So, and the same with like the Arena album that came out. It was okay, and it had some good parts to it, and I enjoyed listening to it, but it was one that was a little bit forgettable, and I didn't really return to very much. So those were probably the two that disappointed me more than others.
Yeah,
even though not bad.
Yeah, like I found like neo-prog didn't really step up to the table as much as I was really hoping they would for this past year and this past quarter, even though they were kind of backloaded the past couple of months with these records. I think I ended up, after sitting with it a little bit more, I think I ended up liking Theory of Molecular Inheritance from Arena a little bit more, but yeah, it still kind of left me a little bit cold just with the amount of brilliance that they came with their back catalog. So
yeah, you stole my pick, Nate. Thanks a lot. Yeah, no,
that's second most disappointing now.
I love Galahad. That record just did not hit me at all. The Arena record took a little longer because the hooks are there. They're just not like immediate. They're kind of, the middle of the road kind of hooks, MOR hooks, I call them. They're there. It's good. And Damian Wilson definitely adds a little something to that Arena record. But yeah, that Galahad, it was to me a disappointment. As far as neo-prog goes in 2022, that Comedy of Errors record was really, really good. So that was the saving grace for the neo scene for me this year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I found that Arena record. My problem, and this is possibly a controversial take, is I personally feel that Damian Wilson, as a vocalist, works well on smaller guest spots. I personally find his vocal delivery, his style, his cadence, his general sort of melody and mood, I don't like it over the course of like an hour plus long record. I tend to find that it repeats on me. It's kind of like if you like have raw onion, like you have take a big bite of a raw onion, oh, spicy, I like that. It's interesting, fascinating, like a big pickled onion, whatever. But then you have 17 pickled onions in a row. By the time you finish those 17 pickled onions, you're like, freaking hate pickled onions. My God, I just never again. Just get rid of them. Whereas and it's very much the same with me with Damian Wilson. Like I like him in small doses, like his guest appearances on things like Aerion Records and stuff like that, with like Universal Migrator Part 2 and all that sort of thing, where he appears in that. Love it, amazing, great stuff. But on a record, the length of Theory of Molecular Intensity,
and it was a longer one too.
Yeah, and I've just found it a real slog of a record to get through. But again, disappointing for me because I do like Arena a lot. Questionable album covers notwithstanding,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So Brent, what was a record that you were a little disappointed?
I'm going to say the same thing with Arena.
Oh wow, okay.
A year that's produced such top-notch, high-quality music. I've always liked Arena, but I've always hoped more for them because they seem to get in that groove that their albums are all samey. They're all consistently good, but they never take that final leap and become super.
Right.
And every time they release an album, I hope and pray that it's going to finally get to that point, and it never does. And my biggest disappointment with it is John Mitchell on it. You hardly hear him.
Yeah.
Somebody being such a great guitarist he is, he's virtually not heard on that album.
That's fair. Yeah, especially when he's come out with at least one really good record this year. Like his Lonely Robot record really was a good time. You would expect to have that same kind of energy on the band that he's most well known for, maybe outside of Frost. Elevate that a little bit more, but yeah, he was drowned out. Yeah.
So that would be my
I
haven't heard the
brutal
Galahad
body
album
slam on
too much.
Arena in this video. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, the Galahad record, as to your point, Brent, it's fine. I found that for neo-prog, it was the most immediate for me. Like, I listened to it once or twice. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what they're going for. I've heard everything.
Exactly.
That's all I really need. Theory of Molecular Inheritance took a little bit longer for me to get a grasp of. It was a little bit more of like a wiggling fish. But yeah. Great. Ian, what was the most disappointing for you? That
Good, no one's taken mine yet.
I was going to say, do we want to go straight into Arena? And
Kick it whilst it's down, you know? And it's like, stop, it's already dead.
It's already dead.
I actually had a toss-up between two. One of them was going to be one that I would talked about if my first pick had been taken, and it's well, I won't get into it, but Brent mentioned it earlier with Threshold, but I won't get into it because there was one I found a lot more disappointing than that, and I was heartbroken that I was disappointed by this. I really, really was, and it was Devin Townsend's Lightwork.
That was mine.
Yeah, I do. I had a feeling you were going to have that as well.
That was mine, and I know I'll let you take the stage for this because it was your pick. Yeah.
I think my biggest issue with Lightwork is I'm coming to this record from somebody who's been listening to Devin Townsend basically since Strapping Young Lad. So the early days, like when he was working with Steve Vai and all that sort of stuff as well. So I've seen every single evolution, every iteration, every particular form and function of him as an artist. I've seen him go from the savagery of Strapping Young Lad to the ambience of the Devin Townsend band, things like Hummer and stuff like that. Up to the Devin Townsend Project, Ziltoid, everything in between. And for basically the first time in my listening career of his, I have found myself bored. I don't think that it's anything that I wouldn't say there's anything fundamentally wrong with the record. Everything here is the right pieces. You've got the production that you've come to expect from him. You've got the lyricism, the songwriting, but everything feels like it's been done before, but better by himself. There is nothing on this record that I feel he hasn't exceeded previously. And as a result of this, it's difficult for me to feel engaged with this one because it's like, imagine taking a greatest hits, but instead of taking the greatest hits, you took the blandest hits and you sort of put them together and put it out as a record. I think for people who aren't as familiar with Townsend, I think it's a perfectly good and perfectly fine way to come into him as a record because it does still have a lot to like on it. There's still a lot of good hooks. There's still a lot of good melodies. His voice is still as strong as ever. But when I compare some of the cuts on this record to things like stuff off of Addicted, off of Deconstruction, off of Epic Loud, off of Physicist, off of what do you call it? Ocean Machine. But there is so much on his back catalogue which is just better than this record, and I know he's capable of more than what he gave us with Lightwork. There were glimmers of hope in Nightwork, but I still think that he was kind of holding back on us. And like I say, for the first time that I've been listening to him, it's genuinely the first time I've ever been disappointed by a release of his. So
yeah, I'm in a very similar boat in that like it was my most disappointing, and that was just because of the legacy and the expectations that I had with this album going in. And I know that's not fair. I know that's not fair to Devin. But yeah, I come for the dynamics, for the big sounds, and a lot of that was still here. I just felt like it was watered down. It was diluted. And I do feel much like what you were saying. He did this album before with Blue Sky. Like this is basically just Blue Sky Part 2. And I wasn't a big fan of that record to begin with. Like, of the Z2s, I much prefer Dark Matters. Like, I much prefer the
100%, yeah.
Ziltoid side of it. But I, again, much like the Perius record of The Signal Heard Throughout Space, I think if someone isn't familiar with Devin Townsend, if they're not a fan of his, this is a very good way to get into it. And I think that was, I think that was the point of this one. I think this was him taking a step back, him kind of distilling and diluting his sound a little bit to make it as accessible as possible. And I think that works very well for those individuals that want that. But for me, that likes the chonky, that likes the you know, the heavy devy, it was it was a little bit of a disappointment on my end.
Coming in coming in as a new fan, like you were saying, it actually was a pretty good entry point for me. So I actually really loved this. I since I'm not as familiar with the back catalog, I think it's interesting how your perspective maybe changes depending on your familiarity with his work. I first got into him with Empath, which I heard a lot of buzz about, so I heard that one, and so that was really great. So I wanted to check out more with Lightwork, and I really liked it because it was like a similar vibe, but a little bit lighter, since I'm not as into the heavy and chaotic and stuff as much. So for me, this was actually a really good continuation of his sound from Empath, as coming in as a newer fan.
Yeah, and like I got into Devin with a 1-2 punch of Deconstructed and Ghost. I picked up both of those records on the same day.
Nice.
I was shocked that this was done by the same person. I was like, these two records are done by two completely different people, but it's not. It's done by the same person. So I know he's capable of doing these very beautiful, very soundscapey, very somber and softer music as he's done with Ghost. I just didn't feel it on this one. That's just my own personal opinion. I get it, you know, but so yeah.
I would say if you're looking for like the more softer, somber side of Devi, Casualties are cool.
Yes.
Right there. Boom.
Yeah.
That is superb.
Yeah, he has, I can never remember her last name, but
Amy Dorval, I believe, something like that.
That's the one. Yeah, she toured with him with the Empath tour. Her vocals are just stellar, and they trade back and forth throughout the entire album. Casualties of Cool is one of my favorite side projects from Debbie.
That was an awesome record.
Yes.
And you know, with respect to Lightworks, let's be honest, if this was a brand new artist that no one had ever heard of before and they dropped this thing, man, we'd be talking about this entirely differently. Put together so well. The production on this thing is mind-blowing. And it almost seems like he was maybe spending more time thinking about the way the record sounded sonically than some of the songs themselves. But overall, it's a good record. I like it. He's just a victim of his own previous success.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, Scott. As I say, it's one of those records where I do still like it and I do still revisit it. It's just that because of his legacy, and it really shouldn't taint how you look at a record on an individual basis.
It does, though.
But it's impossible not to. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so hard not to think about it in terms of his back catalogue, because especially when you're familiar with it and you know what he's capable of, it does tarnish.
I had it at number 25, but I'm telling you, if it were a brand new artist, it probably would have been in my top 10 or 15.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly think same, to be honest. That's, especially if you combine both Lightwork and Nightwork as the one double
which
record.
I did. I got the downloads and I had no idea that it was two different records. I didn't know the difference between the two. And I like that later stuff better.
And Brent, I know that you look on this album quite favorably. So
I do, because I came in not knowing virtually any of his work other than a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I tried for years and years to get into it, and it never happened. And when I heard the first couple singles, I literally shit my mind shit itself. So because I didn't have any preconceptions of anything in his past, it was like he was a brand new artist, and that's why he just ended up as my number 4.
Yeah, it got really high
here, and I love it. I think it's brilliant. I know it's not his best, because just knowing how you guys react to it, I know there's better stuff, and I will discover that. But for
I'm very
now,
excited for you to discover the
wow.
rest of what he's got, though.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. No, and I love that. I know, unfortunately, he couldn't make it here today, but Travis, our buddy that's been on here before, it was one of his favorite records of this year. And he loved it. And I can definitely see it. Like when I listen to the individual tracks, I'm like, yeah, these are good. These are pretty good bangers. But yeah, it's no the individual tracks, like it's no Deep North, it's no Key, it's no, you know, the Solar Winds, like the tracks that I love with all my beings, you know.
Deep Peace, baby.
Oh, Deep Peace is still, it brings me to tears.
I bawled my
just-
eyes out when he played that live a few years ago. My God.
I was gonna say, yeah.
When Brent's gonna go back, and I'm hoping the next thing he does is go to Empath, because there are sonic similarities between the two. They're not light years apart, really.
Yeah,
they're very close. They're very close.
Like the big, like 20+ minute epic Singularity that's on Empath went onto my top 10 prog epics of all time for a reason. Let's put it that way. It's so good.
Pretty amazing. Pretty epic.
Yeah, I bought the By a Thread vinyl deluxe package, the 4 shows that he did back to back to back in London, just because when he did the encores for Key, he did Deep Peace. And so doing that live, I'm like, yeah, I don't mind spending $400 if it means I get to listen to Deep Peace live on a record.
It was an experience seeing that like in full before me in Manchester a few years ago. Just
so
special.
Good. So yeah, unfortunately that was going into my disappointments. That was my biggest disappointments. But there was another record that came out that I had very high expectations for. And again, it was a victim of their own legacy and their own doing. But that unfortunately was Widdershins from Gandalf's Fist. Like, I love their Clockwork Fable and I love the Clockwork Prelude. Those are 2 of my favorite retro prog, neo prog outfits. I love their interspacing like narrative dialogue and a narrative radio play in between the tracks.
Forest of Fae was the one that got me, man.
Yeah. It's just
awesome.
I know that they're capable of so much more, and Widdershins just kind of fell flat. It was a little, I say it's a little safe and generic, and I understand they needed to get that out after the 2 massive epics that were the Clockwork stuff. And it was one of my most anticipated records of the year, but it just, and I know part of that was because of the expectations I put onto it. But yeah, I was just like, just missed it.
I like Cave. For me. I like the epic.
Ooh, Cave is amazing.
I like Cave. Cave is really strong. That was the first thing I heard off of the album. So man, I was ready for just ball-to-ball greatness.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And it was a shame, you know, and it's funny, as much as I love Cave, I think my favorite track from them was the actual title track or Wisp.
Yeah, that was good too.
But yeah, for an album that was, you know, 1 hour and 14 minutes, I wanted a little bit more with a little bit less.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did like this one quite a lot myself personally, but I did love Clockwork Fable like a lot, but again, I found that was a bit too much for muchness. Like if I ever thought to myself, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen to a Clockwork Fable, I'm suddenly thinking, oh my God, that's 3 hours of my life. You know, it's like sitting down to watch Titanic or the new Avatar film. It's a big time commitment. And I often found myself, especially when I was younger, like I just don't have that sort of time free to listen to an entire thing when you need to listen to all of it as well to really get the full scope of the narrative and really appreciate it properly. So for me, I felt Widdershins was a bit more accessible despite being 74+ minutes long. And I kind of vibed the fact they went a bit rockier with this one as well. I really liked a bit more sort of like more aggressive and driven without being like full on metal, obviously. It was more like a hard rock meets prog rock kind of thing. And I personally, I liked it a lot, but I absolutely would understand why somebody would see it differently coming from an appreciation of Clockwork Fable, sort of going down to this, as it were. So I 100% understand disappointment for it. But for me, I kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
Well, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah. Great. Let's round this disappointment list off with Scott. Even though you
Well,
said
yeah,
that,
but there's always another
There's always
dog
another.
to be looked down upon, and boy, oh boy, do I have another dog for y'all for
All
your
right.
consideration.
Let's get it.
The big flaming pile that was Arc of Life. Don't look down.
Oh yes.
See, I don't know this one.
No, I'm intrigued
okay.
now.
Oh, the boys just, you get excited when you hear about the lineup, it's 3 guys in Yes or were in Yes, and a guy that was tangentially part of Yes, and Dave Kersner, and it's like, this has got to be amazing,
On
right?
paper, it has to be amazing.
If you like Union, maybe you like some of this stuff, or if you really thought Heaven and Earth was a great album.
All 3 people in the entire world.
Just
Yeah.
this watered down, sanitized, saccharine, kind of yesy, awful pop rock stuff, and they should all be ashamed. John Davison can do better and has done better.
Oh, boy.
Billy's done better. Dave Kersner, we know he's capable of so much better. It's just Jay Shellen's part of the act. I guess he's officially part of Yes now. Have they made that official yet?
Yep.
I guess.
Yep.
I mean, if
His
they
name's
have
on the posters, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then
Yes,
Jimmy Hahn, they should be great. It's just not. And I wanted to like it. And the second album is maybe slightly better than the debut, but no. It's
It
just
almost
I'm
feels to
looking
me
at
as
the
you
album
could
art.
put the name Yes on a flaming piece of dog shit, and it would sell. Am I wrong in that sense? Like, if it's
Not
got the name
especially.
Yes attached to it, it's going to be great.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
It's just
I'm looking at
it's
the
just
album art at the
not
moment, and
good.
I'm just like, ugh.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is a 17-minute long epic on this thing, which is very creatively called Arc of Life.
Took me a while
Um,
to come up with that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, and but at least it did not have a song. The debut had a song called "Talking with Siri," which
As
gave
in
me an idea of
SIRI?
where these guys' heads
Very
were at.
cringy.
This one's maybe
Yeah.
slightly better. It's just bad.
I was gonna say, like, even the album artwork is kind of cringe. It's just
It,
like,
it really
oh.
is, and I'm just.
Oh.
so-
I could have done that in
so
Photoshop
disappointed.
in like 20 minutes. Come on, guys. Hey, me, I'll do your album art for you. I'll make it look better than that.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
It's a shame because the guy's actually done some really, really great sleeves.
Mhm.
These aren't them.
Right.
The thing is, though,
Oh,
Scott, is that you're tearing it to pieces kind of makes me want to listen to it to see what
Yeah,
it's like.
right.
A little
It's-
bit, yeah.
Even them
I'm like,
four
like that.
spins on Spotify. Just for me now.
Yeah, you gotta check out this Talking with Siri song. It's just so bad.
oh boy, I might have to actually dive into this. I mean, you were doing
Yeah.
a good job of
The
keeping me
Arc
away
of
from
Life,
it,
man.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
think
imagine
you're coming
Yes just being as bad as they absolutely
Oh,
could be.
boy.
All like fake Yes replacement players. just,
Oh, boy. So it's kind of like the mirror verse of like Pattern Seeking Animals, which was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all of Spock's beard
right.
family.
Only this
Only
is
bad.
Bizarro World because
The
everybody's
Bizarro
just
World.
like a really bad version of that.
Oh boy. Oh
What
boy.
are you doing? I'm eating some olives.
Oh boy. Well, I think on that note, let's go over to some of those surprises, those records that really did surprise us. Might not necessarily be our favorite records, but the ones that surprised us the most. And yeah, let's continue the trend by going over to Brent first.
My one is Haven of Echoes.
Yeah.
Wow. These guys should be a lot more popular than they deserve,
Mhm.
or should be more,
Mhm.
rather. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Get a hold of the guys. What's his name? I'm so bad with names. Actually reached out to me and wanted to know if I wanted a copy and if I would review it. And I did it, and I'm so glad I took the time. Sometimes you get approached like that, and the stuff is kind of, and you don't want to badmouth it too much because it's crap. But this is really good.
I think it was probably Andreas Hack
Yes.
might have gotten a hold of you. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it was funny because he got a hold of me as well, but it was right after Nathan had talked about it. And so based on Nathan's recommendation, I went and listened to it, and then I was like, this is great. And then they reached out and they're like, hey, I'm like, well, you speak of the devil, you won't believe what I'm listening to right now. Yeah, it was really good. I was very surprised. It reminded me of, what did it remind me of? It reminded me of like a lot of like the modern neo-prog stuff that we were getting, but a little bit heavier, not quite as like straight up atmospheric. I really enjoyed it. Like there was a lot of passages from like a Stephen Wilson side of things, but
very
like
cinematic too.
very cinematic. Yeah.
It made me think of like modern Leprous, the more
That
lighter
was the one.
Leprous. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I feel like if the last two records from Leprous, like Melina, Pitfalls, and there was Philion. Yeah, I think that is the more realized and much more tangible version of those records. So I really like that. Yeah,
I sort
it's
of
a
like
great pick.
gave this record to like kind of like a background spin. I think I must have been quite distracted at the time because I don't really remember listening to it, but I know I have done. But I'm definitely going to go back and revisit, I think, based off these sort of like, especially the whole Leprous angle, the Stephen Wilson angle. That's like, hello, you are just ticking off the keywords in my like pay attention to me boxes here.
Yeah, and everything has a place to breathe on that album too. Like there's a lot of breathing space, and I really like that. Because it doesn't seem chaotic or anything. It's very soothing.
Well, three of these people were in a band called Frequency Drift.
Ooh,
and the singer Paul was the singer for a band called Spires.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like both of those bands. So yeah, I knew Haven Echoes was probably going to be something I was going to be interested in. And people, the Leprous connection, I was thinking maybe if Leprous moved to Germany and listened to a bunch of Sylvan.
Okay.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to revisit
no bad
this.
thing, right?
That's no bad thing.
Yeah, this is all ticking boxes. I'm definitely gonna revisit this one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a highlight for me for the past couple of months. So yeah, Ian, which was an album that surprised you?
Oh golly, we've talked about a few of them already today. The Wise Blood record, Dirt Poor Robins, both of those are kind of big surprises for me, and I loved them both. But I suppose for me, one of the biggest surprises, I mentioned it briefly earlier, was Lorna Shore's new record, Pain Remains. Now, I was always like Lorna Shore, I was a bit couldn't really get into them. I found them a bit sort of like, they're a bit much. Something about Pain Remains really clicked with me. Now, I'm going to say it right now. Scott, Nathan, stay away from this. Y'all won't like this.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Anti-Scott, anti-Nathan, not happening. You'll hate it with every fibre of your being. But for somebody like myself who very much enjoys the more extreme side of the progressive metal kind of sort of thing, it's more of like tangentially prog. It's kind of prog related insofar as it's more got kind of song structures that sort of like echo prog rather than actually being prog. But the lead vocalist on with Lorna Shore on this record, I'm convinced he's not human. He's actually some sort of demonic gremlin creature spawned from the pits of hell itself, birthed into our world and given a microphone, because I have never heard a human being make noises like this before. Like, some of them can't even really be described as like words, or it's just hideous gremlin sounds, and they're so evil. And it's like, I've never heard anybody sound so sinister and so demonic in my life. Like, I thought Mikael Åkerfeldt sounded evil on things like Ghost Reveries or Blackwater Park. This guy's just like, nah, hold my beer, I got this, man. I am like the high-pitched, helium, squeaky voiced, like just degenerate cousin of Mikael Åkerfeldt, and I love it so much. For some reason, it never clicked with me before, but Pain Remains is just like, boom, it just smacked me around the head a few times. I was just like, okay, now you have my attention. And before I know it, I'm basically doing a really incredibly awkward headbanging motion, which looks stupid because I've got no hair. But, I have fun rocking around in my bedroom, like to the Lorna Shore, to this record. And I just loved it. It completely blew me away when I was expecting nothing from it.
Yeah, I love it. There's a few moments that I call it like the deep drain vocals, where it's like they took a microphone and pulled the plug out of like a really huge sink, and just like as it's like like that's the kind of vocal works. I'm like, that deep drain sound, that's what I love.
It's so nuts. I like, honestly, If you're into
Yeah.
that kind of vocals, like into that kind of music, don't miss this one because it's so ridiculous. It's just everything is so maximalist, but love it. Love it, love it,
Yeah.
love it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Going to me, one of the surprises, I mean, I will admit the Arena album of The Theory of Molecular Inheritance was a surprise because after the first 5 or 6 spins, and I'm like, it was about like the 6th or 7th, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm actually getting into this. I'm really digging this.
21 grams.
It's true. It's true. There's something, I don't know.
I know, it gets in your head.
It gets in your head and you can't get it out. But I think the one that most surprised me, and it was the opposite effect of what made it the most disappointing record, was the Devin Townsend bonus disc of Night Work. Because I had listened to Light Work in advance and I didn't actually have access to Night Work, I already had my opinion made up of the album. But once Night Work dropped and it was a full album into of itself rather than a bonus disc, like it had over 40 minutes worth of music, I love that record. I was like, why wasn't this the record that Devin released? It has all the chonkier sounds on it. It has a lot more of that aggression that I love, but it's still so dynamic. It's still so like the mixing on it, the mastering of it is still pristine. And it's like, this is the album I wanted. This was the Devin Townsend from 2022 that I wanted. And that was the most surprising record for me because of how much of a disappointment Lightwork was. So it was interesting how my opinions of Devin's work throughout this year changed, because I was like excited, disappointed, and then really surprised by his output. So that was my journey with Devin this year. It made my most surprised album of the year. Yeah.
Definitely fair.
So
Definitely
why
agree with
would that be? Would that be a marketing thing with him or what?
Well, I know
he's done it a few times now, hasn't he? Though.
Yeah, he's done like he
yeah.
did that with Epic Louder.
Mhm.
And I think the reason why he did it was he wanted to put out, and again, this is me speculating based on some of the things that I've read. He brought in a producer for Lightwork. So it was him being reined in and like really kind of reined in from another person and another entity that put their thumbprint throughout it. But then with Nightwork, he took some of the ideas that he was coming in with a lot of those sessions and developed them himself without another producer, without another person at the helm. So one was much more of like a traditional album with a traditional album outlook with a producer in it, and the other one was just him being let go, him at his own mercy.
I think it's a product of Inside Out being so artist friendly that if Devin says, "Hey, I want to do this," they're gonna do it because they want to make sure that an artist's vision is able to be expressed on their label. Sometimes to great effect, other times to like, why is there a bonus disc on the Perplexed?
I know why. Yeah, we can put the Corny Beatles tribute song on it.
Yeah. Just
let's bury the best song on the album too, because I'm a Damaged World fan. I've said this a million times. I love that. The other 2 songs on that bonus disc are terrible. But you got 3 songs on a CD. What is this? Remember those singles back in the 90s?
Oh, singles.
What is this? This is a joke. But I have a surprise one.
Oh yes, please. Yeah, what's your surprise?
One that has not been getting any kind of coverage at all, but there's this Polish band that released some amazing neo-prog in the 90s. 1994 they did Moonshine. 1995 they did another one called Safe, and then we haven't heard anything by them since. It's Collage with Over and Out. This thing is amazing, guys. I've just got it like in the last 2 weeks. I've been listening to it. It starts out with a 21-minute long epic, the title track. And then there's 4 more shorter songs that hover between 8 and 13 minutes. And it sounds exactly the way you want neo-prog to be. But instead of being like, oh, this sounds like Marillion here, this sounds like Marillion there, goes straight to the source. It sounds just like Genesis, even though Steve Rothery makes an appearance on the last song on the album. It's just great. And man, Collage, Over and Out.
consider
Okay.
that added to my
I didn't
list.
see this coming.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Yeah.
really want to check that out. Basically, I mean, on the strength of it having a 22-minute opening song, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
You gotta have
Let's
it.
go.
It's really strong. The guy sounds exactly like Fish. There's a
wonderful.
new singer, but it's the same drummer, same guitar player, same bass player. I think they got a new keyboard player and a new singer. The singer was in a band called Keatum, but this guy sounds just like Fish, and the band sounds just like that middle era 4-man Genesis. It's just
Hell
so
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Highly
sounds
recommended.
just my
Highly
kind of thing.
recommended.
Okay.
I'll
yeah,
check that out
'cause
definitely.
Definitely.
I vaguely remember Keatum and
Yeah.
loving them. So
Yeah,
this
they were pretty good.
I'm putting that on my list.
check it out.
for sure.
Collage, really strong.
Oh, all right, awesome. This is why I do this. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm doing this so that what did I miss within the past 4 months? You know,
And
That's
it's in
it, that's
English
it.
too.
and it's in
Hell
English.
yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
Because I love all my foreign language stuff.
Oh,
so
for sure. Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
make sure that it's an English language record. If you want to hear Genesis, like if they put out a follow-up to Wind and Wuthering with Hackett, it might sound a lot like this.
Okay.
High praise
Okay.
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Checking that
I'll
one
check
out.
that
for
one
sure.
out tomorrow, I think, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. The drummer is the leader of the band. He's the
Mhm.
main songwriter, and sometimes it sounds like it's 3 different guys drumming at the same time. I don't know if he's like the loosest drummer in the world or the tightest drummer in the world. But I love it. It's so great.
Oh boy, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Nathan, what was a surprise for you?
Yeah, so my list, pretty much most of it's been talked about. Perius, Devin Townsend, Wise Blood, Verbal Delirium were all ones I was thinking to talk about. But an album that hasn't been mentioned yet that I think should be, because it was one of my favorites of the past couple months, is Elder's album, Innate Passage.
Yes.
So I really wanted to mention that one because it was one of my favorites. It's just really cool. It's a band that I wasn't as familiar with, so that's why it was a little bit of a surprise that it was this good. But I've been hearing a lot of buzz about it, and I of course had to listen. Really cool, like almost psychedelic or stoner metal, adjacent. Some cool like proggy undertones and some expanded pieces. It's just really cool and just such a great listen. One of my favorites that I've been discovering this past couple months.
Yeah, they put out my favorite motorcycle album of this year.
Thank you. Exactly. Yep.
Yep,
it's exactly.
Yeah, it
I
did everything
freaking
that I
love
was.
Elder.
Yeah, they did everything I was really hoping that Ancient Astronauts would do. This was one of my most listened to albums of this year, so I'm glad, Nathan, that you mentioned it, because I even have it like surprises. Remember to mention Elder. I had it like underlined a few times.
I've got my best ones up here as well.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah,
I've been a big fan of Elders like pretty much since day one, to be honest with you, and just to hear their sound, how it's evolved over the years, it's just love it. Still like Reflections of a Floating World most, but it's all good. You can't go wrong, and they become one of those bands where I know when they put something out, I'm gonna love it. They've just got such a good pedigree behind them now. Like every time, I'm like, oh crikey, oh it's Elder, oh god, just throw everything in the bin and just go away. I put my headphones on. I'm just spacing out for the next hour or so to this band. I love it so much.
Yeah, their last 3 albums have just been incredible. I mean, I flip a coin on which one I like better, but they do seem to be getting a little proggier. I'm hearing is a little bit of Yes, so it mixed in with the Motorcycle, and I'm not hating it. It's just sounded great to these ears. Loving it. Dynamite record, good call.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. And I think we'll end this one with Brent. What was an album that surprised you?
Haven of Echoes.
Hey, there we go.
That and Devi's album, but this one is probably the most recent.
Right.
That's really taking a bite.
Great. I'm just did I start with you? I feel like I started.
I think you did, but my memory's
I think.
I
know my memory's. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, perfect.
I mean, it's worth mentioning twice, though. It
is worth mentioning twice. It is worth mentioning.
It reminds me that I need to check it out later.
Exactly.
That's true.
And I don't have Alzheimer's.
No, I mean, I was the one that was like, "Oh, it's a blend with you." I'm like, "Wait, I'm pretty sure I know how to work this."
I'm gonna throw an honorable mention out there.
Go
Michael.
for it. Yeah,
it's gonna be Gorung Fo's new one, Gumbo.
Gumbo. I've heard of this
By
one, but I
Gorung
haven't
Fo.
checked it out.
It's their sophomore album. They play like this real cool guitar, bass, drums, and flute. Instrumental prog that will kind of make you think of Camel sometimes, but maybe a little more fusiony at times. Really great UK 4-piece called Gorung Fo. Second album, Gumbo. Yeah, I was shocked how much I liked
Love
it.
the album art
That was
as
a
well.
fourth
That's
quarter
beautiful.
release, worth checking out.
All right, I will definitely
Good
give
one.
that one a trick.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Like that's like polar opposite to that Arc of Life album art. This is amazing. That looks so freaking cool. I love that.
It's true. It's true.
If I saw that at a record store, I'd be like immediately wanting to grab it just because the album art. That's gorgeous.
It's striking. It's really cool. It's a cool image. Yeah, you want to, who are these guys?
Yeah, heck yeah, I'm gonna check that out as well.
I'll check that out. Yeah. Does anybody else have any honorable mentions in terms of surprises or favorite albums of the last couple of months? Oh, we got Ian. What do we got?
I want to talk about my boy David Maxim McKick and Bilo 4 because I have waited so long for this record. Love it. So freaking good. My boy David is like one of the best sort of like independent prog artists out there. Like he's done his like the 2 Bilo EPs, then he had Bilo 3, which came out like more than 10 years ago, I think, and it was just blew my head open. It was so freaking good. Then he had like Who Bit the Moon and something else, I think, can't remember the other name. But then Bilo 4 was like delayed. Finally came out, and it is the most perfect marriage of soundtrack and prog metal I've heard in my life. It is shockingly brilliant. I adore it, and I cannot recommend enough that people check it out because you will not have heard anything quite like this.
Now your glowing review of it actually made me go out and listen to it.
Yeah,
not my normal kind of fare, but dude,
yeah,
spot on.
Guy's got some chops, right?
And you're right. I've never heard anything quite like it before.
Yeah, it's just that weird, incredible marriage between movie soundtrack and progressive metal, but done in a way that it's not just cinematic power metal. It genuinely feels like it's part movie soundtrack, but then he's got some singing and some guitars over it in parts as well. It's just those last few songs, the big long ones where the vocals come into it as well from the guest vocalists. It's just, oh my God, it just achingly gorgeous and just incredibly punishing in places. Yum.
And another example of really good album artwork.
Yes, it's so cool. It's such.
I
had to censor it.
You want to know again. You want to know what this is about.
Yeah, that's it. I was just like, I have to censor this, so I'm just going to put little stickers over the
yeah, it is
problematic parts.
Safe for work, but it's
no. Awesome. I mean, it is artistic, I suppose. So you could argue in the same way you wouldn't censor the Venus de Milo or whatever.
I think it's a beautifully striking image. Yeah, I just think it's really well done.
But I think everybody in this chat would enjoy it to at least a certain degree, if only for its creativity and its absolute fearlessness.
Yeah, it's interesting. That sparked my going to the Prog Archive, the top 100 albums of 2022. And that one is currently sitting at number 7.
Is it actually? Ooh.
It is, yeah. College is at number 6, Over and Out.
Okay.
And Verbal Delirium is sitting at number 9. So some of our favorites are appearing here on the list. There's a lot, especially within the top 5.
Do you think the tail is wagging the dog here?
Maybe, maybe we'll see. Well, I mean, to kind of counter to that point, like the top 5, I've never heard of.
It's the end of the year on Prog Ives, Marco. What they do is they dump everything.
Yeah,
the rest of the year, you got to have a certain number of reviews. At the end of the year, they throw everything in there. Those will disappear. There's a lot of weird stuff on there right now.
That's true.
They
Yeah, because I don't.
Every year they do a little data dump.
Yeah, because I don't recognize these top 5, but I mean, it'll get me to listen to them at least.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so with that, let's move on to the last segment. Sad, I know, the last little segment, but we're going to open it up to all of 2023 rather than any releases that are between now and March. Those albums that we're really looking forward to coming into the new year. And let's start with Ian finishing us all off.
Oh boy. Okay, so let me think here. Obviously, this month we've got Riverside as well. We all know about that. But I'm also really looking forward to the new Catatonia record as well, and not Catatonia with a C, Catatonia with a K, because that causes endless confusion for my non-prog related housemates, who assume that I'm talking about old school Welsh pop band from like the 90s with their songs like Road Rage and Mulder and Scully and all that something. But Catatonia with a K, very much. Jonas Renkse, who's done some collaborations with like Arion and stuff like that in the past, very distinctive vocals, kind of like a somber, atmospheric kind of doom metal kind of thing, but with a more melodic twist to it. They've been quite consistent recently. Haven't released anything particularly mind-blowing over the past couple of times that they've released records, but I'm quite optimistic for this one. Sky Void of Stars due out the same day as Riverside, though those two will be fighting for my attention. Looking a bit further forward, Winery Dogs, February. Quite looking forward to that. Do love a bit of anything with Portnoy involved in it, so pretty hyped for that. The Transatlantic live album, can't wait for that as well. Insomnium as well, another favorite band of mine, like the sort of melodic death metal kind of thing going on. Really consistent band, never really anything particularly mind-blowing, but always you're going to be in for a good time, if not a great time with them. Then March, obviously, we're looking for some amazing stuff going on in March. My God, with the new Haken, new Enslaved, new Baby Metal, guilty pleasure, I don't care, I love Baby Metal. New Neo Obliviscaris, which is gunning for my top spot from just the first single alone. And I believe our best mates at Versa have got something coming out within the first couple of months or so as well. So pretty hyped for that as well. Oh yeah, and then there's Metallica as well, some band I've never heard of before, you know.
Yeah, just very underground garage band.
Yeah. So long as they can just keep Lars away from the production, it'll be fine, you know. Take his garbage cans away from him and say, Lars, just for God's sake, just play normally. Just play like a human being. Please. We're begging you.
Yeah.
Listen to Lars, I know you're watching this.
Oh yeah, he's a long-time fan.
Yeah, that's it. He's there going, I'm Lars Ulrich from Metallica. I like to say fuck.
Oh boy. Yeah, those are some great picks. Yeah, Scott, is there anything that you're really excited for 2023?
Yeah, I actually am, even though you guys have probably already gotten your advanced copies of the new Simon Collins project, E-Molecule.
Yeah,
this thing sounds really good to me. Is there something wrong with these old 60-year-old ears? But this record is sounding really, really modern and really crisp and really cool. And he's sounding a whole lot like Daddy. And I'm not hating this thing at all. I'm pretty psyched to see what happens with this E-Molecule thing.
Yeah, I have it in my queue. I haven't dived into it quite yet because I'm like, well, he's fine, but I haven't really connected with any of his other side projects as much. No. So maybe with your recommendation, I'll give it a spin.
I'm really looking forward to that. And secondarily, these guys need a second album.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Please. Give me a second album, because that Smile album was probably my favorite Radiohead album since OK Computer.
Wow.
It's that good.
Yeah, it's great. And have you heard the live rant when they did it live on YouTube? It's just, it brought so much more dynamics to it. It's so good.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Night and day.
Yes, so good.
It reminds me, even though I wasn't a big fan of it, when they did the King of Limbs in the live session, I'm like, oh, this is what the album was supposed to sound like. Except they started with a good record.
I love King of Limbs.
Yeah,
but that's probably their worst album. And
I would agree.
If that's your worst album, you're probably a really good band.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, what's an album you're really looking forward to?
All right. I'm looking forward to the follow-up for the Deer Hunter. They're hopefully coming out in the spring.
Sunya?
Yeah, Sunya. I think
Please.
So I'm hoping that's coming out. There's a little bit of buzz about a new Steven Wilson album probably coming out this year.
Harmony Codex or something, isn't it? Yeah.
Harmony Codex. Yeah.
And I'm still crossing my fingers for New Moon Safari, please.
Oh, please, God. I hope so.
I hope this is the year.
Every year within my most anticipated, I save a spot just in case.
Yeah.
This might be the year. This might be the year.
We keep saying it. Eventually, it'll be true.
It happened with Tool. I'm like, this might be the year we get a new Tool album, and we got.
And there it was.
And there it was, and it was great. Nathan, what's an album that you're really looking forward to?
We just did Nathan.
Yeah,
I did Nathan. I'm staring right at Brent, and I'm like, yeah, Nathan, why aren't you talking? Oh,
that's
boy.
gracious.
And Nathan's like, what's wrong with this?
I just did.
Sorry.
I can host these things.
I could do another. No.
Oh boy, Brent, what's an album that you're really looking forward to?
Peter Gabriel.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about that new single?
Oh, I loved it.
Again,
Really
I'm
great.
staying. I'm doing my best to stay away, but oh, it's
Oh,
tempting.
It's like
Oh, it's
that,
real
huh?
tempting.
Okay.
Hard to do, but yeah.
I love
I've
it.
heard,
I love
I've heard
it.
some interesting rumors about the release schedule of this record. I
Yeah.
keep hearing that he's going to release a new single every new moon or something
Every
like
new
that.
moon.
So it comes out properly on the 29th of December of this year. I'm like, no, don't do that.
Oh yeah,
Release the damn
March,
thing.
March is fine.
March is great. How about March?
Right? Yeah. Let's make March the best month in prog, like in
Oh,
like 10
boy.
years or something like that.
Hopefully a
Oh,
Neil
boy.
Morse project of some sort.
Ooh.
Well, it's almost a guarantee because we're
Yeah.
due.
Yeah.
Neil never sleeps. He's just recording music as we speak.
Exactly.
You know, he just does it in his sleep. He's just
I
like,
don't know.
Probably 2 albums
2022
ahead.
was an oddly slow
Quiet.
year for Neil Morse in terms
Yeah.
of output. The Troika album was
Troika was great. Yeah, that was good.
the only thing.
Yeah, I think that's really his only one, and it was like a side.
No, I think
Yeah.
a prog album. So he
Yeah.
hasn't done a prog album since
Yeah.
the absolute.
Which means we're overdue.
Yeah,
I
we
think
are
Jeff
definitely
Barrett's in
overdue.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch, he'll put-
for it, y'all.
He'll pull a King Gizzard and give us 5 albums.
Don't tempt him. You might do it. Actually, do tempt him. I want him to do it.
Story, yeah.
Yeah,
Please, God. If we could just get
Oh,
something on the lines of Similitude of a Dream or The Grand.
Well, he's
Adventure,
probably
then
already got 2 or
please.
3 albums.
Oh yeah,
more
it's
than
like
likely.
saved up and ready.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Oh boy.
I went to see Similitude of a Dream played live in full a few years ago, and oh my
Mhm.
goodness, oh amazing!
Yeah.
One of the best shows
Yeah.
I've ever been to.
Yeah, sadly, that was the only concert that I've been to with Neil Morse, because he doesn't come up north all that often.
Don't go to the UK much either.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I did get to see him perform the entire Similitude, and oh, it was so good.
Mm.
It was so good.
Mhm.
Yes, I caught it in Cleveland. It was
Mhm.
unbelievable show. But then again, Neil can do whatever he wants.
Oh, absolutely.
Just put something out, man.
Yes, I'll listen to it. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
Whatever he
Yeah,
does,
we're-
I'm listening, man.
I was gonna say we're definitely starved for content. Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to finally getting my hands on the Antimai because I still haven't received that yet.
Physical copy's still not come out properly.
I was the one that ordered like his big ultra deluxe version with like the cassette tape and the record and the action figure. So
Oh,
yeah, the little
sick,
action
awesome.
figures. So I hope when I finally get it, I'll do an unboxing.
that'd be
'cause
cool.
Still waiting for that one. But I think the one that I'm most excited for is the new Fido record that will be coming
Yes!
out
Oh, yeah.
in the late fall.
That single sounds great.
He's so
Yeah,
good.
But you're not.
I'm staying away. I'm staying away. It's hard because I have to wait until like the fall. It's not coming out until like November or something ridiculous. So yeah, something that hasn't been touched upon quite yet, that's coming up sooner rather than later is the new Uriah Heep album, Chaos and Color.
Ooh. didn't know about
As
those.
somebody that grew up with Uriah Heep and like everything from Salisbury all the way until The Magician's Birthday were just like albums that I digested and loved and just anything from Uriah.
were hard to beat.
Yeah, it's really hard. But
Hey, their last couple of records have been pretty good. Uriah
pretty
Heep's been
good.
keeping the bar pretty
Yeah.
high. Mick is definitely got a nice little discography to look back on. The history of Uriah Heep is littered with all kinds of great albums, and it's just so exciting that they're still doing records and they're still actually good. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Not like Yes.
I was gonna say, unlike a few of those other legacy bands that are just churning out whatever, I'm reminded that they're very much like Deep Purple, both sonically and sound, but also in output, where sure there might be a couple duds in their discography, but like overall they've been very strong and very consistent.
I would
Very
just
similar.
listen
The
to
last
that,
couple
too.
Deep Purple records have been great.
Yeah.
They have been good, yeah.
Yeah,
Shockingly
like
so,
Whoosh,
actually, yeah.
Whoosh and What Now are just like some of my favorite from Deep Purple, and they were released like in this decade. So, well, I guess last decade in this decade, but still like so good. Like, so yeah, those were my picks, and I think that draws this to a close. So I want to thank. Oh, we've got something. Yep.
I just had to say, when we were talking about Simon Phillips or Simon Collins earlier, has anybody heard this?
Yes,
that
I
is
have
the
that somewhere.
only-
It's
This is
so
really
good.
good.
Yeah, what is it called again? Because I've been trying to remember.
Sound of
Contact, I think.
Contact.
Sound of Contact.
Sound
Yes.
of Contact. Sound.
It's really good. My brother got that for me for Christmas ages ago because he thought I might like it, and I was like, you know what? He was right. I did like it a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
'cause
first
I-
encounter with Dave Kersner.
Yeah, mine too.
And I've been a huge fan of his output ever since. And yeah, what a great record that Sound of Contact was. There were a
Yeah.
lot of people very, very sad that the second album never came.
Yeah, just the one
But
out.
that's
Just
why
a
this
one
E-molecule
and
has got me really excited.
Yeah, me too. Because I find it quite similar actually.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it's two guys from Sound of Contact, and I'm excited.
good.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I've been trying to find the Sound of Contact because I remember it came out and I'm like, I remember I loved it. And I thought the album was named after the infinity symbol that's on it. So I kept looking for different iterations of the infinity and I just could never find it. So yeah, now that I finally have it, I'm going to sit back and listen to it this afternoon because I remember loving it. Yeah. And on that note, let's draw this to a close. I want to thank our 4 panelists today. Let's go back around. Where can people find you? And we'll start with Scott. Scott, where can people find you if they love your talks today?
If you like what you see, go on to the Prog Corner. That's the handle. You know, we've all got these fancy handles, and then I'm on Twitter a whole bunch too. I like to hang out on Twitter and mess around with you people. And but yeah, we just talk about prog rock. That's all we do at the Prog Corner.
That's great. Amazing.
Yeah, that's it.
Nathan, where can they find you?
Yeah, my channel is called Nathan on Shuffle. So I'm on YouTube doing my thing with prog music and all the things there. I'm also on Twitter as well with the same name. So just easy to find me, I hope.
Amazing. Yeah, pretty easy. Brent, where can we find you?
You can find me at the Similitude of Prague. I'm also on Twitter, and I also have the same progressive rock disease that everybody else here has.
Yeah,
That's fair. Yep. And Ian?
You'll find me on youtube.com under Rhyme Signatures. That rhyme rhymes with time, and time rhymes with rhyme. Rhyme Signatures. Very clever. You'll also find me on Twitter, but you'll never find my handle. Now, if you dig deep enough, you'll eventually find it, but you'll never find it under Rhyme Signatures. Or if you do, then it's an imposter and they're lying to you. But you might find me. You know, I tweet a lot of crap, basically. So you know.
Yeah, and you can find me right here on this channel. And if you guys haven't checked out my podcast yet, I've got my podcast of The Metalhead. It's a meditative podcast about metal music. And I am bringing back Quid Prog Quo, which is the podcast of where I get my friends and loved ones to listen to progressive rock music, and they get me
thank you.
to listen to whatever I want. So that'll be very fun. It's going to upload like once a month because it's a little bit more time consuming than all my other projects. It was great in the lockdown when I didn't have any other things to worry about, but when I have a lot more things to worry about, it's a little bit more time consuming. So hopefully the first of season 2 will go up at the end of this month. So I'm very excited.
Season
about
2, woo!
Get starting with that.
Almost as excited as I am about season 2 of the Squid Games.
Yeah, I've got some good recommendations on there, and some good guests as well. I tried to get some pretty more notable people in our prog sphere for that. So yeah, and I think that's about it. So I want to thank you for watching and following us along, and be sure to follow all of our panelists. I'm going to leave all their information down below in terms of the YouTube channels of where to find them. And yeah, I think we're going to close this one out. So for 2022 and midnight. Yeah, one of the good ones from this year. Gotta love her. Yeah, thanks once again for watching. As always, all of you are all the best. And until next time, Notes and all of our panelists, we are out.